This is a 2H engine and I thought it's in a perfect condition.
Yeah, that didn't age well.
So I assume the block is inside pretty rusty. Something mechanical happened here. Actually, I don't want to know what is behind it. What the...
The last few weeks we were already pushing our luck with this restoration.
The frame damage is excessive.
We completely repaired the frame, but today we will take a look at the engine after a so-called restoration.
So on 3 and 4 there is oil running out of the inlet.
It will be a bumpy road, so come along when we try to take apart this 2H engine and discover some things along the way.
Today I will disassemble this 2H engine. A little bit about the H engine family. The first child was the H, and that is the middle child, the 2H. The last child was the 12HD. The first child had 3.6 liter displacement. This one has 4 liters. And the 12HD is 4 liter direct injection with a turbo. First I thought this engine, I just have to do the clutch and put in some seals. So I looked into the water pump housing and the thermostat housing, and what I have seen in there is, yeah, disgusting. Like, I think that's the story of this car, disgusting. And so we decided to disassemble the engine and look into it. But now we will...
Ich glaube, das ist aufgefressen, dass du den Motor auseinander nimmst, ne?
Yeah.
We start with the water pump to see with what we are dealing here.
It is disgustingly rusty. And why it is disgusting rusty? Because the car was sitting 20 years with the same coolant.
And you can definitely tell that didn't go well. The amount of rust on the water pump and also on the housing is crazy. Next up is the thermostat and the thermostat housing. After we loosen the bolts, we can simply take out the thermostat.
The thermostat is also disgusting old, and I assume it's the first one. Says a lot about Toyota quality, but to rely on a 42-year-old thermostat is probably not the right way. What we do now is we will disassemble the water pump housing and also the thermostat housing, so you can take a look inside the engine. And I am also pretty curious about how it looks really in there.
One thing is for sure, it will be not rust-free. What's coming next is the water pump housing.
Actually, we can see in the water pump housing how high the coolant was sitting for a long time. Here, where the rust is, was the coolant level for a long time. So I assume the block is inside pretty rusty, and when we take the head off we will see into the cooling channels, and I think we will see some lot of rust in there. But we will go with it. Next thing is thermostat housing.
Also here we take a closer look and we can already see what's waiting for us. Then we remove the valve cover to take a closer look on the rocker arm assembly. The grease in the cover and on the assembly already tells a story.
So in the inside of the valve cover we see a lot of black gunk, and when we take a closer look to it, that is actually why they redid the head gasket. It's a mixture, oil-water mixture. I think when they redid the head gasket they don't clean very much. The car only drove probably 200 kilometers. Afterwards, that is not dirt from 200 kilometers, that is from a long time span, actually. If we look at the push rod assembly, because it is an engine where the camshaft is in the block, we have push rods and they actually open and close the valves.
I'm pretty sure most of you know this, but let me explain it. Here we have a cam and block engine, also called a OHV engine, where the camshaft is located low inside the block, and push rods transfer motion up to the rocker arms to operate the valves in the head. On the other hand would be an overhead cam engine, meaning the camshaft is in the cylinder head. There are no push rods. The cams directly actuate the valves or operate through very short followers. Example of these engines would be the Honda K series, the Toyota 2JZ and also the Mitsubishi 4G63 Turbo. Now we got that out of the way, back to our 2H engine.
And we see everywhere here black gunk. I mean, sure, it's a diesel engine, but still that is not dirt from 200 kilometers, that is dirt from a long time span. Next thing we take off is exhaust manifold. As you see, the bolts already ripped off. I assume also the bolts from the actual manifolds will rip off, because they always rip off. They rip also off on the 12 HDs. Then we will take a look from their inside, and then we get the diesel lines off and the intake manifold.
Onto the exhaust manifold cover. While I removed this, I could already see the rust behind it. For only driving 200 kilometers, since the restoration, that thing is pretty rusty. With the cover out of the way, we can start to remove the exhaust manifold. We only need to remove the bolts and it slides right off.
There we have the exhaust manifold.
Time to make some discoveries.
No, it was for sure not off, because you see where the dirt starts and where the gasket begins. There was actually probably no cleaning involved, so I assume they were not off. And our next thing after we removed the exhaust manifold will be the side panels. Under the side panels you can see the pushrod assembly, and then besides the alternator we are done on this side, and then we go to the other side. And what we see under the last pushrod cover is the drainage plug of the block, where you can get off all the old coolant. On the 12 HD it is nearly on the same position, but hidden behind the turbocharger, so it is actually a little hard to get it out. If we take a look on the engine, what do we see? Here, we see here our freeze plugs, and what we see on the second freeze plug is the story of this car.
Why replace the freeze plugs when you can seal them? Just another problem we need to address. I'm pretty sure that all of the freeze plugs are almost as old as the engine. Now we remove the dipstick and then we remove the alternator. A really cool thing is the lines right here. They are bolted to the engine because of the vacuum pump. The pump is lubricated with engine oil. It's just built to last. And out with the alternator.
What is the main problem if you repair a freeze plug like this? The main problem is behind the freeze plug is the water jacket of the block. The sealant in there will probably last, I don't know, half a year when you drive it, really drive it, and then the water will start to drip out into the oil, and then you have a nice pudding machine. Because when oil and water does mix, you have a grayish, brownish pudding, and then you will have some problems with the oil pressure, or it gets hot and then it is dead. Yeah, that's the problem, and I'm curious what we will find behind the oil cooler.
Because behind the oil cooler there are also freeze plugs. After we have removed everything from the left side, it's time to disconnect the fuel lines in order to remove the diesel filter. Then we remove the remaining fuel lines. And the intake manifold needs to go next. As soon we opened everything, we can simply just take it off and see what we can find.
So on 3 and 4 there is oil running out of the inlet.
The valve cover breather is the reason, or they did not replace the valve seals. Either way, to diagnose correctly, we need to remove the head. In order to remove the head, we loosen the bolts on top of the rock arm assembly. And with that taken off, the next problem already waits.
They already saw the next thing. The third valve is hammered. When the car arrived, they already heard that it was loud, but not scary loud, just loud. If you heard a lot of these engines, you know what is wrong, what is right, what is a little off, and it was just a little more off than usual. So, what we do have here, also Ford is hammered. What do I mean with hammered is, they are hammered. They are flat. Something mechanical happened here. When you buy a car and someone says the head gasket is replaced, you would assume they took out the valves. When I look at the rocker arm assembly, it is hammered too on the cylinders. So I have to not just disassemble everything, I have to measure everything actually, and also it's just a lot more of work now. And I have to look where I source parts for old 2H. I mean, probably I have some parts laying around, but for sure not all.
A little tip: before you take the push rods out, prep something. Something where you can put them in the same order you took them out, to be safe from excessive wear and tear. In this case, I'm pretty sure when they replaced the head gasket, they did not care about how they were in.
So now I unbolt the glow plugs. Actually, the 2H has glow plugs and the 12HD has no glow plugs. The 12HD works more like a diesel semi-engine, where the glow assembly is on the intake manifold. And why is that? Because it is a direct injection engine, and the direct injection engine actually starts also without glow plugs. And as we see, the glow plugs are for sure not new. I mean, if the contact on a glow plug is bent like this, you would assume you change it. For me, it is completely not understandable why somebody works like this.
I mean, take a look at this. Why would you ever reuse that? With everything out of the way, we are almost ready to remove the head. The next thing on the bucket list are the head studs, for those who need a little bit of leverage. A tip here: before reassembling the engine, we need to measure the head studs for the right length. Studs wear out and can get longer. Finally, we can inspect the head. I'm not really happy with the burning pattern, that's something we will discuss later. Before we take a look at the top of the piston, don't forget to take out the bearing of the push rods. Now I manually turn the engine by spinning the crankshaft to take a closer look on all the pistons and also the bore.
You see a little scarring on the cylinder walls, but I see it, I can't feel it with the finger. And I also see, when I look on the burn pattern on the pistons, that cylinder number 2, 5 and 6 doesn't have a good burn pattern. The pistons actually don't look bad. The next thing we will do is we remove the oil cooler and we'll look how it looks in there. Then we will actually see how the water jacket around the pistons look, because then you have a nice view on it.
Here you have the oil cooler. As mentioned, also on this side we have the freeze plugs. To access them, we need to remove the oil cooler and also the oil filter housing. Then we can get an idea on how bad it actually is.
Actually, I don't want to know what is behind, and that is the leftover from that thing. Looks like, because I see here pencil marks, that someone made a gasket for it. I assume the guy who sold it. Draining the block, because I drained the block and the rust is heavy and sinks down. There's still a lot rust in there, so yeah. We will further disassemble it. Normally I should now take off the gear cover in the front, but I need something positive, because I've already seen the gear cover is glued in with sealant. That's why I now take down the oil pan and look on the inside of the engine if I see something positive.
Now we just need to turn it on the engine stand and remove the oil pan.
I just took overall look into it. If I see something way off, that's mostly the first thing I do, because if the engine has bearing damage, you mostly hear it when you drive it. I didn't hear anything when I drove this thing. I see the front cover is just sealant on it, where the front cover bolts to the engine block actually, and it is not Toyota sealant, it is blue. So a main difference between the 12HD and the 2H engine is there are no oil squirters. That's why when you turbo that thing, what is possible, if you just make a soft turbo application, If you crank out more and more horsepower, they tend to die because the engine is natural aspirated, and that's how Toyota planned it. It's not made for it, at least not to last forever.
Something that is also not forever is the sealing cord on the oil sump. What also caught my eyes was they did use 30mm bolts instead of the standard 12mm when they reassembled it. Now we remove the oil feeding lines for the oil pump, and we are pretty much finished here.
Every man has felt the shame. All our blood, it runs the same. Father, hear us as we
What I'm doing here is checking if there is a crank walk in the crankshaft. Then it's time to remove the crankshaft pulley. And yes, it was 100% torqued to spec. Now I'm undoing the belts, and one thing is for sure.
It was a total restoration.
Good for another few years. In order to remove the front cover, we need to take a crankshaft puller to get the pulley off. With a few turns, also this is out of the way.
I hope there is no surprise behind that.
The only thing remaining is the power steering pump. And now we can finally take off the front cover, revealing the gears behind it. I'm checking the play in the injector start regulator. I also take my times spinning the gears to see if something happened to it. But we are looking pretty good here.
Now I get down the Spritzbeginn-Regler auf der Pumpe. That thing. The guy said he had that pump out. I am sure he had not.
With a little help of a SSD, things did get off pretty smoothly. Afterwards we disconnect the pump.
So, our nice P-pump. I'm pretty sure that thing was never out because I can see where the dirt starts, and yeah, that thing was never out. Now we remove the gears, then we get the camshaft out, and then the front cover, in the front cover is also the oil pump, and then the block is big part disassembled. Besides, I don't get out the piston, for sure not.
The gears are out, the only thing left is the camshaft. We only need to loosen the bolts and then get it out.
So I just look on the camshaft for damage. We just have some minor pitting. You always have to keep in mind the engine is 42 years old, so it can't look everything as a 2-year-old car. Probably it still looks better than a 2-year-old car because a 2-year-old car is probably garbage. I mean, there is some wear and there is some pitting, but nothing I'm really concerned about. On the 6th cylinder, as you can see, we have here some pitting, but it is just on the edges, and I see no abnormal wear. And also the edges are very sharp because it is a gusset camshaft. Just some minor pitting is totally okay.
That are good news. I'm pretty happy we didn't find anything. Now I remove the last gear. We use again the puller, and then only the safety pins are left. Be careful removing those, you don't want to hit the crankshaft directly. Only enough, so you can use a pair of pliers to get the pins out. Because as you see, it was already hit prior. Then I take a screwdriver and the oil pump comes right off.
And as I see, someone already opened it, because the Phillips heads are a little rounded. What we see here are the gears for the oil pumps, so the drive gears from crankshaft. And now we will turn the engine and look in the 6th cylinder on the crankshaft bearings and Conrad bearings. And afterwards we look into the oil pump, because there has to be a reason why it was open. So I hope, because the oil pump was open, there was never a problem with the oil pressure, and that's why we look at the 6th cylinder, because when we have here the oil pump, in the middle is the oil sump. So when the crankshaft is spinning, it spins the oil that pumps, then it sucks the oil into the oil pump, and the oil pump pumps it with the galley through the block. And the best lubricated cylinder is, for sure, because there is the oil pump, the first, and the worst is the 6th. They always were damaged at the 6th cylinder, and mainly from starting it and full throttle. I mean, if you have 10 liters of motor oil or even a little bit more, it takes some time from the oil to get from here to here and up in the head. My guess is that it is probably worn, but I hope not too much.
It's time to finally look at the Conrad and the main bearing. Once again, I crank it over, so we can work on the 6th cylinder.
What we see here is here the Conrad bearing. Actually, it looks good. I assume it's the first Conrad bearing in the engine. We see some slight wear and some scratches, but just minor scratches. It's actually just normal wear and tear on the Conrad bearing. Looks actually how it is supposed to look. Far away from damaged, actually. And now I will get the cap back on, hand tighten it. Afterwards I will Torx back it, but hand tighten it for now. Look into the rear main bearing and then we assume the bearings are good.
Back on with the Conrad bearing, and we open the main bearing. Let's see what is waiting for us.
So same with the main bearings. They look good. I assume the engine had no problem with oil pressure. It actually only has 230-ish thousand kilometers on it, so I will not put out the pistons because with 230,000-ish kilometers and bearings they look actually really good. I assume there is no problem in it. The only thing what is a problem is the head. And we will look also into the oil pump because someone opened it. If the oil pump also looks good, we just will reseal everything or clean him a bit, and yeah, that's for now. Next thing, oil pump.
That are great news. After we check the Conrad and the main bearings, we will look into the oil pump to see why it was open. But also here, things are looking pretty good. There is nothing damaged, the gears just look fine, only the normal wear and tear after so many years. Now we move the head over to the other table, so we can open the valves and inspect them. Before we take the head apart, we are again prepping something where we can put the valve springs on. In the same order we take them off. And also we are prepping something for the valves. Same here, the correct order is important.
Now we will get the valves out of the head. If the valve guides are good, especially on the first 4 where the valves are damaged, and I hope also the valve seats are good, but we will see it. For that we have to compress the valve springs and then hopefully we find no further damage. I mean, there is already enough damage, but hopefully no further one. And now we will do it with my hefty 20 years ago built valve pusher.
You get the valve springs off when you compress them and get the valve wedges out. I use a magnetized screwdriver to easily get the wedges out. The valve spring consists of 2 pieces. And then it was time for the hammered valves. The third one wouldn't compress, so I moved to the fourth one. Again, the fourth valve compresses easily. To get the tension out of the third valve, I use a plastic hammer and hit it slightly. It works like magic, and now I can compress the hammered valve.
On the second cylinder, third valve, so first valve, even the wedges are damaged, and the edges are broken off.
That's how hard the valve was hammered. Now, we only need to take the rest of the valves apart, and we are pretty much done.
Valve springs are off and I can push out the valves, but before we do that, I remove the old head gasket. On the head and the cylinder is, when you look at the dark colors or dark shadows, you see which cylinder burned good and which not. The next thing we'll do, we'll push the valves out, look at the valve guides and the valve seats. On cylinder number 1, the valve seats and the valves actually look good. I mean, you always have to consider the age of the engine. Okay, what we see on the second cylinder exhaust valve is that it didn't, I mean it closed, but how it sat on the seat wasn't really good anymore. You see all the pitting on the seat. We will see when we grind it if we can get rid of that with a new valve. And also on the valve you see on the edges everywhere where you have the dark spots, that is where the gas actually could escape and you have a lower compression on the cylinder.
After getting the valves out, we can see how rusty that thing is on the inside.
Look at this, it is softish. Oh, it's part of the old head gasket. You see how gunked up? Look at this. The engine is. The valve seals are actually soft, so I assume they replaced the valve seals and then something happened, and that's why the valves are damaged. What do we know now? We know that the block is rusty inside, actually the entire engine. We know because it is rusty inside, the freeze plugs are probably all or most of them are rusted to hell. The water pump thermostat has to be changed, the head needs to be measured. I have to look on the valve guides how good they are actually. I have to replace at least, I would say, the first 4 valves, but I will measure them also. All the things around the engine. We know we can probably, the pistons are goodish. I mean, we don't look at them. The bearings look good. And if you ask yourself, why not all out? Because all out costs a lot of money. And this car already has a lot of repairs. And as I said in the beginning, when we started that journey, the owner just wants a workhorse, a daily driver. And if you're into Land Cruisers, you know when you start with one part and you want to go all over it, that's a lot of money. So we will make it usable, we'll make the engine run good, get the most out of the old parts and just do it the right way, or more or less the right way. What I will do afterwards is clean everything, clean the engine, clean the head, clean the valves, clean everything. A very boring work. And afterwards, the good part is we will get it back together, you and me. And hopefully then the frame is already finished and we can put it back in. That will be the good part of it. And now we will see us in the next episode of Ranching.